So the first thing that I wanted to cover was that the various kind of black hat hackers, and there is a reason why I chose to call them black hat hackers. Meaning, it is not that a term that I have derived; it is a well-known thing. But there is a reason that we need to focus on the aspect of black hat hackers as compared to hackers in general, because hacker word itself is something that is kind of synonymous with someone who has got ill intentions, someone who's not ethical or professional, someone who is after you. But that is not truly the case. The word hacker itself literally means that someone who attempts to break into a system. But then we all should know by logic that breaking into a system is not necessarily always a bad thing. After all, think of it this way: when we create our web application, and where when it is undergoing the phase of QA, quality assurance testing, after all, they are also people who are trying to break into the system, meaning they're trying to break the logic that has been coded. And the idea is that they are trying to figure out that what are the things that are not working as expected, which need fixing, meaning they are serious enough that they would not give a go ahead for the application or the system to be put into production, because users will ultimately face those issues. After all, they are also hacking the system, right? In a more physical sense, we can say that whenever, let's say, a new car is created, all of the aspects that are related to the functioning of the car, they undergo rigorous testing. And in this testing, the people are actually trying to break the car. The idea being that if they can break it in testing, is that okay to allow for the production release of that particular vehicle? So they are also hacking, and which is why this notion of segregation of hackers came up, where there are white hat hackers, there are gray hat hackers, and there are black hat hackers. White hat hackers are, people usually well known from the security domain. They are also called as security researchers, but then, white hat hackers is also a term that is used very frequently with them. Then there are black hat hackers, who are outright criminals, who are people after, something that belongs to you, and means some kind of a gain for them at the cost of loss for you. They are black hats. And then there are gray hat, who are kind of somewhere in between. They are this, maybe white hat by the day, black hat by the night. But then ultimately there is a lot of doubt as to, where would you classify them in terms of good or bad. I would leave that open to interpretation, because honestly speaking, even I would not know that where exactly, to place them. So we will be focusing on the black hat ones today, right? And when it comes to black hat hackers, everyone has got a motivation. Every criminal has got a motivation. And the motivations are mainly these four that I believe we can group into. So first one is naturally financial gain. These are people who are trying to break into a system to directly cause some kind of a financial loss for you and financial gain for them. Now, we read these stories more frequently, and probably it is going to continue to remain the same way, which is that these kind of hackers, they usually do not target organizations, but they target individuals. When you talk in the context of, let's say, India, for example, the most common being that people are somehow made to let out their OTP, one-time password, which then is used for withdrawing money quickly from their bank accounts. And these kind of things happen all of the time. In fact, I have read news where even security people from the security domain, they have managed to lose money. People from the law enforcement agencies, they have managed to lose money. People who we would classify as educated have managed to lose money. And that way, actually, the situation is quite disappointing, that if these kind of people can be compromised, then what is the hope for people who are not that tech savvy, right? And funny thing is that even I have received these kind of calls, and it would be funny for me to take them through the loop, and make them go through all of the hoops to ultimately like get myself out of it, but because obviously I had no interest in being exploited. But then I also wanted to understand that, that what are the techniques that these people apply. And I was so impressed by uh, their capabilities, right? And maybe this sounds wrong, but the fact of the matter is that if I had the choice of having them as people who I work with for the sake of their intelligence and smartness, I would be very happy. In fact, if that happened, because they were so smart and intelligent people, right? So that is the first one, financial gain. When it comes to organizations and web application, when we are talking in the context of web application, the main theme of this session, we are talking more in an organizational sense, right? And that is where the next two, in fact, are more important, meaning people who are intending to extract a lot of data, and data has itself value, because data, once it is extracted, can be used for identity theft. Someone can pose as you, as yourself, if your data was part of that breach. Or maybe the data can be sold to entities that are in the business of advertising and marketing, where lead generation is, requires a lot of personally identifiable information, their profile information. There are, like, established methods which are driven by what we call as data brokers, whose job is to collect a whole volume of data and then sell it forward. So that is the second motivation of these black hat hackers, to extract a lot of data. And frequently it happens that data is extracted and then it is posted on the dark web, where it is posted for a certain amount of money, depending on how much valuable it is. And by the way, data itself goes by um, unit values. What I mean by that is, someone's email address has got so much of value. Someone's, and when I say someone, I mean to say a list of email addresses. So for example, a list of email addresses that have been validated to be correct in the last 1 month, meaning these are active email addresses, and there are 10,000 of them, for example, that will have a certain value associated with it, right? And this is a very basic. I have seen values being assigned to very specific things, like list of email address, list of mobile numbers, countries that they belong to, uh, their own financial status, meaning people who have got high financial value, high net worth individuals, their data is more valuable. Then there are these PayPal accounts which has got this much amount of value, or credit cards which have got this much amount of credit. All sorts of things that I've seen, right? And they all have got value. They are extracted, put up on the dark web, and then sold. The third one, which is also again related to um, organizations, I would say, is cred seekers. Meaning, see, what happens is that the hacker ecosystem is, after all, a social structure, and if you want to gain any kind of a credibility there, you need to you need to prove yourself in some way, right? Now, in our normal world, like for example, if we talk of the field of security, the way we prove ourselves is we obtain our certifications. That itself has got a lot of value, because everyone else in the world knows that these security certifications are extremely difficult to clear. A lot of people who take up these security certifications, they fail, and a minority of them actually get through, which means that they have put in their time and effort studying the domain and understanding it. There is no such thing in the field of black hat hackers, because if these things became open, then it would be easy to catch them. So how do you end up proving yourself? The simple way is that you have your hacker tag, which is usually some kind of a specific name that you have given to yourself. Using that hacker tag, you place identifiers in any kind of a breaches that you carry out, which then becomes known in the hacker circle, and that is how you gain your credibility and you become more popular, which means that you gain more value. At the end of it, there is not much of a difference in our white collar structures and these structures. They follow pretty much similar structures, except that the methods are different of how you gain credibility. In normal world, you gain credibility through experience and through certifications. In this world, you gain credibility by breaches, and the bigger target you breach, the more volume is of breach that you carry out, the more wider the impact, the more credible you are. And this is something that is also, in fact, ironically reflected in the same tools that security researchers use to gain credibility. So for example, what if you take up, let's say, academic courses like Portswigger or Hack the Box, there, the more difficult the machine that you are cracking into, the more credibility you get. And this is the exact same structure that is followed for black hat hackers as well. So that is one other motivation. And the final motivation that I can classify is nation state actors. These are not hackers that are after you or after your organization. These are actors who are after other nations. After all, nations are always in conflict with each other. We all know the various conflicts that are ongoing. Cyber attacks are becoming a very common way of waging war, and there are entire um, organizations that are supported by the entire nation state in launching these attacks, right? And this is something not new. But then, when we talk in the context that we are talking today, the last one is something that is of least value to us because they are not ones who are likely to come after us, right? So these are the various types of black hat hackers that you will find.